the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, and JustTheNews.com founder, editor-in-chief, and chief investigative reporter, John Solomon. John, let's start with the news. This report is devastating. They are saying null and void. Can't be any clearer. If people don't have the time to read 91 pages, just read the executive summary.
Yeah. That's exactly right. You get to the point very quickly, right? His inner circle, Joe Biden's inner circle, covered up for the country the fact that he was in mental decline and that he was so unavailable to do his job on a daily basis that the staff secretary, probably the most important person in the White House, the guy you see next to Donald Trump every time he has a press conference and he's signing a document, Will Sharf, well, Joe Biden's version of that person, Nara Tanden, didn't see him for 6 to 8 weeks at a time. She had no idea whether he'd approved the documents that were coming through her hands. He was an AWOL president in decline, and the people around him misled the American people. That's what this report says. And then the man sitting right next to you on the screen, Jim Jordan, releases some bombshell documents today in this other investigation. What do we know now? We know that the memo that the FBI used to open up Arctic Frost, which then targeted 160 Republicans, 92 conservative groups, 8 senators, 1 House member, a president, and a vice president, was really deficient under the guidelines of the FBI. The memo that opens up Arctic Frost uses words like evidence suggesting. It doesn't actually lay out a predicate. And it's looking at a crime that by submitting alternate or fake electors, as they use, or fraudulent electors is the term they use here, they committed a crime. The memo does not address the fact that in 2 prior times in American history, similar fake, fraudulent, or alternate electors were submitted. In South Carolina, 1876, Hawaii, 1960, no prosecution occurred. That isn't even mentioned in the FBI memo. So bombshell stuff from Jim Jordan and James Comer today.
It was your Judiciary Committee that released this as it relates to the letter from Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson to Jack Smith. What's your take on that? And what's your take on the AutoPen presidency release?
Well, first on the AutoPen, I mean, as you said, Sean, as John said, the whole country knew Joe Biden wasn't up to the job. And we saw that firsthand in that debate in the summer of 2024. I mean, the line I always remember is when Joe Biden said he had an 8 handicap. And President Trump says, are you kidding me? I've seen your swing. So we knew he wasn't up to the task after that debate. And then you have all these actions he took subsequent to that. That's the concern there. And Joe Biden, when he was asked about this, said, well, we had a process in place. Well, as John just articulated, as the report points out, there really wasn't a process for them to evaluate each of these, whether it was a pardon, commutation, or whatever action, executive order, whatever actions the president took. And then with Jack Smith, what we've learned is it was much broader, much more expansive than we ever thought. And remember, this is the same Jack Smith who put the gag order on President Trump, who raided his home. This is the same Jack Smith whose 2 deputies came in front of our committee and took the fifth 71 and 73 times respectively. This is the same Jack Smith who we already know spied on 8 United States senators. Now we learn all this. And this is why we want Jack Smith in front of our committee in a deposition format after we get the documents, and we can ask him some of the same questions we ask his deputies that they took the fifth to. Like a simple question, was this a political operation you guys are running against President Trump? I exercised my Fifth Amendment liberties. How many other members of Congress did you spy on? I exercised my Fifth Amendment liberties. Those are the kind of questions we want to ask Jack Smith and see what kind of answers we get from the guy who ran this whole operation.
Jim Jordan, are you saying these pardons and commutations, some 4,000 some hundred of them, should be null and void, including Biden's own family? And do you believe that there was some type of untoward collusion between the January 6th committee, Benny Thompson, Liz Cheney, and Jack Smith that was inappropriate and illegal, possibly?
Well, I don't know about that. That's all up for the Attorney General and the Justice Department to decide. What I do know is that January 6th committee did 16 transcripts that they just turned over so that Jack Smith didn't have to go out and get a probable cause warrant to get this kind of evidence. They just gave it to him. So I do know that happened, and we'll leave that up to the Justice Department. And then with Joe Biden, he said there was a process that they went through, certain protocols they had to follow before the AutoPen worked.
But is that unreasonable search and seizure, what you're describing?
Well, look, I mean, we release transcripts from time to time. We don't just hand over the whole investigation to the Justice Department. So I'll leave that up to the Justice Department. What I do know, there's all kinds of unusual things that took place there, and certainly how expansive this investigation actually turned out to be. And then relative to the pardons and the auto pen, again, I'll leave that up to the Justice Department. What we know is there was no process, and we know that President Biden, I hate to say this, but it's the truth, just wasn't up to the task, and the whole country saw that in that debate.
Okay, all three of us have been up to our eyeballs in Russia, all up to our eyeballs in impeachment 1, impeachment 2, weaponization of the DOJ, et cetera, et cetera. John Solomon, what are you interpreting from these discoveries? And the question I get asked most often, you come up with all this information and nothing ever happens. Now, things are beginning to happen that never happened before. Where do you see this going?
Well, I think Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are going to continue to provide extraordinary clarity to Chairman Jordan, Chairman Comer, and others to get the evidence to make the decisions about whether crimes were committed in this process. What you're seeing in Arctic Frost is a redo of Russia collusion, a weakly predicated case that looks like a Democratic opposition research project being done by the FBI, and you get the National Archives and Congress helping them. I think that that's what this is going to turn out to be, another Russia case.
Do you see a prima facie case that they abused power and were spying on people without a proper warrant?
Is that for me? Well, Sean, look, we'll leave that up to the Justice Department. What we do know is we referred John Brennan for what I think what is part of this. Some people call it a conspiracy because we know that he misled us, wasn't square with us. I think, in fact, lied to the Congress. So we sent him on a referral letter to the Justice Department on John Brennan as well. All part of this broad effort to go after the president and go after your political foes.
All right, last word, John Solomon.
Yeah, I think the chairman has it right. This is a get Trump investigation. Now the question is, what laws were violated? Did people lie? Did they cover up? Did they commit crimes? Did they violate civil liberties? That's going to be Pam Bondi's decision. I think the grand juries are starting to really ramp up around the country. I think we'll see some more activity in the next few weeks.
All right, thank you both. Wow, pretty blockbuster.